Y'all, Lil Nas X didn't waste a single second clapping back at Jim Jones after dude tried to throw shade and ended up embarrassing himself. This whole Nas versus Jim Jones mess popped off when Jim pulled up on the Joe and Jada podcast, talking real reckless. He said he used to ride hard for Nas back in the day, but now Jim swears his own catalog, his Billboard hits, and the way the younger crowd vibes with him puts Nas in the rear view. Like seriously, Jim tried it, but it did not go how he thought it would.
The Billboard entries, pull up Nas Billboard entries. He's your son.
Nah, but he knows
my son, my son can't tell you one Nas record.
And y'all, social media went crazy, like full meltdown. The whole hip-hop culture tuned in and started dragging Jim for even coming at Nas like that. What's wild is how this all spiraled out of control over something that started super low-key. The whole Jim Jones versus Nas debate got brought back to life because of a random clip from the Don't Quote Me podcast a few weeks ago. A 22-year-old college student from Jersey claimed that Jim Jones had more influence on his generation than Nas. Yup, he really said that. And once that clip hit the internet, ooh, it blew up. Folks were arguing in the comments, timelines were on fire, and that old generational beef in hip-hop reignited like gas on a flame. Here's what went down during that segment.
Pop Champagne, Summer in Miami, that's a classic.
If I Rule the World, how's that comparable to those songs you just said?
I'm 22. Every Nas song that my man's MJ played, we said we heard that from what, Dub?
2K.
2K. Those songs are in the video game.
Okay.
I have never in my life said at a party, yo, throwing that Nas right now. If you did top 3 influential people,
and that right there, that's what made Jim hop on the Joe and Jada podcast to speak his piece. To be fair, he kept it respectful, said he used to look up to Nas heavy, but over time, he carved his own lane and did his own thing. But now, here we are again, and the Nas versus Jim Jones beef, oh, it's officially back on and poppin'. But let's not act brand new. This ain't their first run-in. If you've been outside long enough, you remember the mid-2000s tension when Dipset was riding with Jay-Z and Rockefeller during that iconic Nas versus Hov era. Jim Jones ended up right in the middle of that smoke, and what started out as admiration for Nas flipped into straight-up rivalry. Jim started wild in interviews, saying stuff like, F Nas, I don't give a bleep about Nas. He's a rapper that just lost his pizzazz. Yeah, he really said that. Meanwhile, Nas, cool as ever. He didn't even flinch. No diss tracks, no name drops, just smooth, classy shade that let everyone know you're not even in my weight class. And if you need receipts, here's the clip from 2005 where Nas had the crowd laughing when he brought up Jim's name like, who even is Jim Jones? Like a Jim Jones? That silence spoke volumes.
Like a Jim Jones, like, I respect you getting your money. You're like, exactly.
That energy, it never really died down. Fast forward to now, and Jim is back at it, pushing the same narrative, but this time even louder. And just when things were about to cool off, he turned the heat up again on Shannon Sharpe's Nightcap podcast. Shannon straight up asked him if he really believed he was a better rapper than Nas. And y'all, Jim didn't flinch. He stood 10 toes down and said with his chest that he would run circles around Nas.
I will run circles around Nas rapping right. I will run circles around Nas rapping right now.
As for Nas, he's not giving this drama the time of day. Not a word, not a post, nothing. And honestly, he knows that's exactly what Jim Jones wants. Let's keep it real. Nas has been out here winning Grammys, selling out shows, and cooking up classic after classic with Hit Boy for the past few years. He doesn't need to clap back. The work speaks for itself. That silence, yeah, that is the clap back. Because if you really know the culture, you know what it is. Nas staying quiet while Jim keeps running his mouth is the kind of move only legends make. That's legacy talk.
Hey, this the biggest podcast you ever been on.
Name one Nas record.
This the biggest podcast you ever been on. Do you know what podcast?
And now, here we are, standing at a crossroads in what could go down as one of the wildest rap rumors of the year. Nas versus Jim Jones. Two artists from very different corners of hip-hop, suddenly thrown into a generational firestorm. One, a living legend with a discography that shaped the culture. The other, a hustler from Harlem who carved out his own lane with grit, charisma, and that signature Dipset energy. But the deeper you look, the more you realize this wasn't really about who's better. This was about legacy versus clout, silence versus noise, timeless bars versus social media antics. Jim Jones tried to make a point. He wanted to spark a conversation, and whether you agree with him or not, he succeeded in getting people talking. His claims about influence and relevance definitely stirred the pot, especially among younger fans who may not have grown up on Illmatic or seen what Nas did for the game in real time. But the way Jim went about it, that's where the backlash came in. It's one thing to celebrate your own success, but when you start throwing shots at someone who helped build the culture you're eating from, that's where it crosses a line. And Nas, he could have gone full ether again. He could have dropped a brutal diss track and had the entire internet in shambles. But instead, he did what legends do. He let his silence talk louder than words. That's what separates Nas from a lot of rappers today. He doesn't chase headlines. He doesn't clap back just to trend. He moves with precision. And that rumored verse, the one fans are convinced was aimed directly at Jim, that wasn't desperation, that was strategy. It was a reminder that Nas doesn't need to yell to make noise. When he speaks, the whole game listens. And that's what's happening right now. Fans, bloggers, OGs in the culture, they're all weighing in. You got folks breaking down lyrics, comparing discographies, analyzing interviews. And at the center of it all is this undeniable truth. Nas's legacy is bulletproof. You can debate popularity, streams, or youth appeal all day, but when it comes to impact, lyricism, and cultural significance, Nas stands in a league of his own. Meanwhile, Jim Jones is in a tough spot. On one hand, he's still relevant in his own way, dropping music, doing podcasts, and staying connected to the streets. But when you poke a giant, you better be ready for the fallout. And right now, a lot of fans feel like Jim crossed a line by trying to put himself above someone who inspired generations. Still, let's be real, beef has always been part of hip-hop. It's part of the DNA. And sometimes, tension like this brings out the best in artists. So maybe this sparks something real. Maybe Jim drops a diss. Maybe Nas responds with a full track. Or maybe it ends right here, with Nas's silence echoing louder than anything Jim could ever say. But regardless of where this goes next, one thing's for sure. This moment reminded everybody who Nas is. A king, a storyteller, a pillar of hip-hop whose presence doesn't need defending, because the music does all the talking. And if the rumors are true, if that Legacy Talk EP really is on the way, then Jim might have just awakened a sleeping giant. Because when Nas decides to speak, he doesn't just respond, he elevates the conversation. So as the dust settles and the memes fade, let's be honest, this wasn't just a rumor. This was a reminder. A reminder that in a culture obsessed with clicks and controversy, real artistry still matters. That you can't clown a legend without consequences. That sometimes the most dangerous clapback is the one you don't see coming. Jim Jones wanted attention, and he got it. But Nas, he gave us perspective, a masterclass in how to handle disrespect without losing composure. And for fans watching this all unfold, it's been pure entertainment with a side of education. So what happens next? Will Nas break his silence with a full track? Will Jim push back again? Or will the culture finally give flowers while legends are still here? Either way, one thing's crystal clear: Nas never left. He just let the work speak. And once again, it's speaking louder than ever.
The Billboard entries, pull up Nas Billboard entries. He's your son.
Nah, but he knows
my
that
son,
they know about
my son can't tell you one Nas record.
Pop Champagne, Summer in Miami. That's a classic.
If I Rule the World, how's that comparable to those songs you just said?
I'm 22. Every Nas song that my man's MJ played, we said we heard that from what, Dub?
2K.
2K. Those songs are in the video game.
Okay.
I have never in my life said at a party, yo, throwing that Nas right now. If you did top 3 influential people.
Nigga like a Jim Jones, like, I respect you getting your money. You're like, exactly.
I will run circles around Nas rapping right. I will run circles around Nas rapping right now.
Hey, this is the biggest podcast you ever been on.
Name one Nas record.
This is the biggest podcast you ever been on. Do you know the podcast?